الشهادة. عالم الغيب والشهادة هو الرحمن الرحيم. هو الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الملك القدوس السلام المؤمن المهيمن المؤمن المهيمن العزيز الجبار المتكبر. سبحان الله عما يشركون. هو الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الملك القدوس السلام المؤمن المهيمن عالم الغيب والشهادة هو الرحمن الرحيم. هو الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الملك القدوس السلام المؤمن المهيمن المؤمن المهيمن العزيز الجبار المتكبر. سبحان الله عما يشركون. صدق الله العلي العظيم.
पर मोहम्मद व आले मोहम्मद सलवात। बिस्मिल्लाहिर्रहमानिर्रहीम। अन फातिमत ज़हरा अलैहिस्सलाम बिन्ते रसूलिल्लाह सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि व आलिहि क़ाल समिअतु फ़ातिमा अन्नहा क़ालत दख़ल अलैया अबी रसूलुल्लाह फ़ी बअदिल अय्याम फ़क़ाल अस्सलामु अलैकी या फ़ातिमा फ़क़ुल्तु वअलैकस्सलाम क़ाल इन्नी अजिदु फ़ी बदनी ज़ुफ़ा فقلت له أعيذك بالله يا عبده من الضيوف. فقال يا فاطمة ائتيني بالكساء اليمني فغطيني به. فأتيته بالكساء اليماني فغطيته به وسرت وانظر إليه وإذا وجهه يتلألأ كأنه البدر في ليلة تمامه وكماله. فما كانت إلا ساعة وإذا بولدي الحسن قد أقبل وقال السلام عليك قد وقال السلام عليك يا أمه. فقلت وعليك السلام يا قرة عيني وثمرة فؤادي. فقال يا أمه إني أشم عندك رائحة طيبة كأنها رائحة جدي رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله. فقلت نعم إن جدك تحت الكساء. فأقبل حسن نحو الكساء وقال السلام عليك يا جداه يا رسول الله أتأذن لي أن أدخل معك تحت الكساء؟ فقال وعليك السلام يا ولدي ويا صاحب حوضي قد أذنت لك. فدخل معه تحت الكساء فما كانت إلا ساعة وإذا بولدي الحسين قد أقبل وقال السلام عليك يا أمه. فقلت وعليك السلام يا قرة عيني وثمرة فؤادي. فقال لي يا أمه إني أشم عندك رائحة طيبة كأنها رائحة جدي رسول الله. فقلت نعم إن جدك وأخاك تحت الكساء. فدنا الحسين نحو الكساء وقال السلام عليك يا جده السلام عليك يا من اختاره الله أتأذن لي أن أكون معكم تحت الكساء؟ فقال وعليك السلام يا ولدي ويا شعفي أمتي قد أذنت لك. فدخل معهما تحت الكساء فأقبل عند ذلك أبو الحسن علي بن أبي طالب وقال اللهم صل على محمد. فقال السلام عليك يا بنت رسول الله. فقلت وعليك السلام يا أبا الحسن ويا أمير المؤمنين. فقال يا فاطمة إني أشم عندك رائحة طيبة كأنها رائحة أخي وابن عمي رسول الله. فقلت نعم هو مع ولديك تحت الكساء. فأقبل علي نحو الكساء وقال السلام عليك يا رسول الله أتأذن لي أن أكون معكم تحت الكساء؟ قال وعليك السلام يا أخي ويا وسي وخليفتي وصاحب لوائي قد أذنت لك. فدخل علي تحت الكساء ثم أعطيت نحو الكساء وقلت والسلام عليك يا عبته يا رسول الله أتأذن لي أن أكون معكم تحت الكساء؟ قال وعليك السلام يا بنتي ويا بضعتي قد أذنت لك. فدخلت تحت الكساء فلما اكتملنا جميعا تحت الكساء خاض بي رسول الله بطرف الكساء وأومع بيده اليمنى إلى السماء وقال اللهم إن هؤلاء أهل بيتي وخاصتي وحامتي لحمهم لحمي ودمهم دمي يؤلمني ما يؤلمهم ويحزنني ما يحزنهم. أنا حرب لمن حاربهم وسلم لمن سالمهم وعدو لمن أعداهم ومحب لمن أحبهم. إنهم مني وأنا منهم. فاجعل صلواتك وبركاتك ورحمتك وغفرانك ورضوانك علي وعليهم وأذهب عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. فقال الله عز وجل يا ملائكتي ويا سكان السماوات إني ما خلقت سماء مبنيا ولا أرضا مدحيا ولا قمرا منيرا ولا شمسا مضيا ولا فلكا يدور ولا بحرا يجري ولا فلكا يسري إلا في محبة هؤلاء الخمسة الذين هم تحت الكساء. فقال الأمين جبرائيل يا ربي ومن تحت الكساء؟ فقال عز وجل هم أهل بيت النبوة ومعدن الرسالة، هم فاطمة وأبوها وبعلها وبنوها. فقال جبرائيل يا ربي أتأذن لي أن أهبط إلى الأرض لأكون معهم سادسا؟ فقال الله نعم قد أذنت لك. فهبط الأمين جبرائيل وقال السلام عليك يا رسول الله. العلي الأعلى يقرؤك السلام ويخصك بالتحية والإكرام ويقول لك وعزتي وجلالي إني ما خلقت سماء مبنيا ولا أرضا مدحيا ولا قمرا منيرا ولا شمسا مضيا ولا فلكا يدور ولا بحرا يجري ولا فلكا يسري إلا لأجلكم ومحبتكم وقد أذن لي أن أدخل معكم فهل تأذنوا لي يا رسول الله؟ فقال رسول الله عليك السلام يا أمين وحي الله إنه نعم قد أذنت لك. فدخل جبريل معنا تحت الكساء فقال لأبي إن الله قد أوحى إليكم يقول إنما يريد الله ليذهب عنكم رجس أهل البيت ويطهركم تطهيرا. فقال علي لأبي يا رسول الله أخبرني ما لجلوسنا هذا تحت الكساء من الفضل عند الله. فقال النبي صلى الله عليه وآله والذي بعثني بالحق النبيا واصطفاني بالرسالة النجية ما ذكر خبرنا هذا في محفل من محافل أهل الأرض وفيه جم من شيعتنا ومحبينا إلا ونزلت عليهم الرحمة وحفت بهم الملائكة واستغفرت لهم إلى أن يتفرقوا. فقال علي عليه السلام إذا والله فزنا وفاز شيعتنا ورب الكعبة. فقال أبي رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله يا علي والذي بعثني بالحق النبيا واصطفاني بالرسالة النجية ما ذكر خبرنا هذا في محفل من محافل أهل الأرض وفيه جم من شيعتنا ومحبينا وفيهم محموم إلا وفرج له هما ولا مغموم إلا وكشف الله غما ولا طالب حاجات إلا وقضى الله حاجة. فقال علي عليه السلام إذا والله فزنا وسوئدنا وكذلك شيعتنا فازوا وسودوا في الدنيا والآخرة ورب الكعبة.
بر محمد وآل محمد صلوات. کہاں جائے آخر بیابان ہر سو شکستہ پہلو اکیلی زہرا کہاں جائے آخر بیابان ہر سو، شکستہ پہلو اکیلی زہرا، رونے پہ پہرا مصائب کا صحرا اکیلی زہرا۔ در فاطمہ کو جلایا ہے تم نے، کیا وعدہ اپنا بلایا ہے تم نے، تماچے نہ مارو مسلمانوں جاؤ علی کو بلاؤ اکیلی زہرا، رونے پہ پہرا مصائب کا صحرا اکیلی زہرا۔ بیاں کس سے جا کر کروں درد اپنا، ہے غیروں کی دنیا نہیں کوئی اپنا، کوئی ہائے بابا سے کہہ دو یہ جا کر کہ لے جاؤ آ کر اکیلی زہرا، رونے پہ پہرا مصائب کا صحرا اکیلی زہرا۔ اے لخت جگر حسن ابن حیدر، یہ نانا کے پہلو میں سونے نہ دے گر، تم آ جانا پہلو میں سو جانا ماں کے، بقی میں یہاں پر اکیلی زہرا، رونے پہ پہرا مصائب کا صحرا اکیلی زہرا۔ شہ کربلا نے کہاں روکے ماں سے، یہ مظلوم بیٹے نہ مظلوم ماں سے، اکیلا ہوں میں بھی اکیلی ہے زینب، اکیلے ہے بابا اکیلی زہرا، رونے پہ پہرا مصائب کا صحرا اکیلی زہرا، کہاں جائے آخر بیابان ہر سو، شکستہ پہلو اکیلی زہرا، اکیلی زہرا، اکیلی زہرا، بر محمد وآل محمد صلی اللہ علیہ وسلم۔
صلوات۔ وقتگی کی آخری رات تھی، زخمی زہرا نے فضا کو آواز دی، آئی فضا کو زہرا نے رو کر کہا، اب تمہارے حوالے ہے یہ گھر میرا، تم کو معلوم ہے میرا حال ہے بہن، میرے بچوں کا رکھنا خیال ہے بہن، میرے بچوں کا رکھنا خیال ہے بہن، یہ فضا پکاری بتائیں یہ بی بی کمی کیسے ماں کی میں پوری کروں گی، ماں ہوتی ہے ماں ہوتی ہے. میں بھولی نہیں آپ کا گھر چلانا، وہ ایک وقت میں گو فریضے نبھانا، وہ چاکی چلانا، وہ جھولا جھلانا، کبھی آپ کے بن نہ گزرا کوئی دن. مجھے اماں فیضا وہ کہتے ہیں لیکن ماں ہوتی ہے، ماں ہوتی ہے. اے بی بی وہ گر جب اٹھایا تھا میں نے، شکستہ یہ پہلو یہ دیکھا تھا میں نے. وہ جب آپ سے غال پوچھا تھا میں نے، نہ غم پسلیوں کا نہ پہلو کا صدمہ کیے فکر محسن نہ مر جائے میرا. ماں ہوتی ہے، ماں ہوتی ہے. کہا روک فضا نے ایشا غزالی، وہ چھپ چھپ کے روتا ہے غربت پہ ماں کی. نشان انگلیوں کے ہے چہرے پہ ابھی، جنازے پہ آ کے وہ چہرہ جو دیکھیں، میں اس وقت اس کو سنبھالوں گی کیسے. ماں ہوتی ہے، ماں ہوتی ہے. انہیں شامیوں سے بچا لوں گی بی بی، میں ہاتھوں کو چادر بنا لوں گی بی بی. انہیں اپنے پیچھے چھپا لوں گی بی بی. کھلے سر وہ آئے جو گر بار جائے، چلی آئیے گا جو زینب بلائے. ماں ہوتی ہے، ماں ہوتی ہے. رضا اور ذیشان کیسا سما تھا، وہ جب شمر نے شہ پہ خنجر چلایا، پہنچ کر یہ ماتل میں فضا نے دیکھا، پسر کے سرہانے کہا فاطمہ نے، لہد چھوڑ آئی ہوں کچھ کو بچانے. ماں ہوتی ہے، ماں ہوتی ہے. صلوات. بارے دیگر بلند کر صلوات. خواب میں زہرا نے بابا کو جو دیکھا ایک شب، خوش ہوئی پاس میں بابا کے، چلی جاؤں گی اب. ہائے رونے لگی بچوں کا خیال آ گیا جب، یہ خبر ہی نہ ہوئی پاس حسین آ گئے کب. اماں ڈھونڈیں گے کہاں یاد اگر آئیں گی ہم کو مر جائیں گے گر آپ چلی جائیں گی. ماں نے جب یہ سنا دل کرپنے لگا, پیار کر کے ہوئے فاطمہ نے کہا دیکھو حسین میرے حسین ایسے نہیں کہہ کے, دیکھو حسین میرے حسین ایسے نہیں کہہ کے. ماں کسی کی ہمیشہ رہی ہے کبھی, میں بھی بچھڑی تھی اماں سے بچپن میں ہی. ماں کے جانے کا دکھ کو بہت تھا مگر دیکھو میں بھی کو بن ماں کی رہی. تم کو میری قسم تم سے بچھڑے جو ہم جب کہ کرنا ہے اے لال ماں کا یہ غم. دیکھو حسین میرے حسین ایسے نہیں کہہ کے. حال میں نے کسی کو سنایا نہیں, خود کو روئی علی کو بتایا نہیں. میرا پہلو شکستہ ہے بس اس لیے اپنے سینے سے تجھ کو لگایا نہیں. ٹوٹی ہے پسلیاں کرنا پائی بیاں, کتنی تکلیف میں جی رہی ہے یہ ماں. دیکھو حسین میرے حسین ایسے نہیں کہہ کے, دیکھو حسین میرے حسین ایسے نہیں کہہ کے. مجھ کو معلوم ہے میرے نور نظر پیاس لگتی ہے تم کو بہت رات بھر. پیاس سہنے کی عادت بگالو ذرا, پیاسا رہنا پڑے کب کہاں کیا خبر. پیاس تم کو لگے اور نہ پانی ملے, یہ دعا ہے کہ وہ دن نہ آئے کبھی. دیکھو حسین میرے حسین ایسے نہیں کہہ کے. تم کو کھانا بھی فضا کھلائے گی اب, اور سویرے وہی منہ گلائے گی اب. تم جہاں جاؤ گے ساتھ جائے گی وہ, ساتھ ماں کی طرح وہ نبھائے گی اب. پالے گی اب وہی ضد نہ کرنا کبھی, خوش رہو گے تو ماں کو بھی ہوگی خوشی. دیکھو حسین میرے حسین ایسے نہیں کہہ کے. اے رضا اور ذیشان دل تھام لوں رو کے شبیر کہہ کے کہ اماں سنو. دیکھو تم نے بلایا تو میں آ گیا, جب بلاؤں گا یہ وعدہ کرو. ماں نے وعدہ کیا بیٹا چپ ہو گیا, جب جنازہ اٹھا پھر آئی صدا میرے حسین. صلوات.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. I request Surah Fatiha for the marhumeen of the sponsors for the today's majlis. The sponsors for the today's majlis is Hashim Himati and Abbas Ali Zaidi. So please recite Surah Fatiha for the marhumeen of the families. Also, we have a couple of more majalis of this series. Tomorrow will be at the same time after Maghrib. Tomorrow we have the same workshop all day, and then after Maghrib we'll have the majlis. And day after tomorrow we'll have the majlis shahadat of Bibi Fatima at 8 p.m. So Monday being a working day, we are keeping it at 8 p.m. So everyone is requested here to be on time. And our majlis will be addressed by Sheikh Mahdi Rastani. We are also having a couple of other programs. In January, we are having a winter retreat organized by our combined Baitullah and Baitul Qayem community. It was supposed to be attended by Maulana Asad Jafri, but now I think there's change in program. It will be Maulana Sheikh Abu Sumayya, who came here during Muharram, and with Sheikh Bilal Rizvi, Sayyid Bilal Rizvi. So we'll be having these two alim in January. I think this is 12 to 14 January. In a couple of days, they will release the notification for registration. And based on the last experience, it went away pretty quickly. So everyone is requested to, as soon as it comes, please register, because it was a very good event. With that, I request Sheikh Mahdi Rastani to please come and address the majlis. With a loud salawat. If everyone is requested, if anyone is outside, please come, and then please move forward so we don't have an empty spot here.
For the soul of Sayyid Asad Jafri, as well as all of your marhumin and marhumat, Al-Fatiha. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Maliki yawmiddin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Ihdinas siratal mustaqim. Siratal ladzina an'amta 'alayhim. Ghayril maghdubi 'alayhim wad-dallin. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Qul huwallahu ahad, Allahus samad, lam yalid wa lam yulad wa lam yakun lahu kufuwan ahad. Loud salawat, please. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad wa ajil. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله الذي لا يبلغ مدحته القائلون ولا يحصي نعماءه العادون ولا يؤدي حقه المجتهدون الذي لا يدركه بعد الهمم ولا يناله غوص الفطن الذي ليس لصفته حد محدود ولا نعت موجود ولا وقت معدود ولا أجل ممدود أما بعد فقد قال الله الحكيم في محكم كتابه الكريم أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم وإذ قال ربك للملائكة إني جاعل في الأرض خليفة قالوا أتجعل فيها من يفسد فيها ويسفك الدماء ونحن نسبح بحمدك ونقدس لك قال إني أعلم ما لا تعلمون وعلم آدم الأسماء كلها ثم عرضهم على الملائكة فقال أنبئوني بأسماء هؤلاء إن كنتم صادقين قالوا سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم قال يا آدم أنبئهم بأسمائهم فلما أنبأهم بأسمائهم قال ألم أقل لكم إني أعلم غيب السماوات والأرض وأعلم ما تبدون وما كنتم تكتمون صدق الله العلي العظيم صلوات اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد. For the love of our beloved Prophet and his beloved progeny, a second loud salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. For the hastening in the return of our beloved 12th Imam, a third final loud salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. First and foremost, I want to begin tonight's talks as well as the next two nights that we are together by offering my condolences on the martyrdom of our beloved mother, Lady Fatimiyya Zahra, salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayha. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad ajil farajah. The topic that we'll be discussing tonight and tomorrow night is the topic of asking why in Islam. There comes a time at one point or another when we are taught about religious teachings where we might want to ask why with regards to a particular religious teaching. The reality is that you and I, living in this part of the world especially, live lives that are different from the lives of the people that we see around us. There's a certain way you interact with society around you. Maybe a woman wants to shake hands with a man with a woman. You might not be able to take part in that. The question that comes to mind is why? You might have to pray 5 times a day. The question that comes to mind is why? There are certain types of food that you can consume, they are halal for you. Other types of food you cannot consume, they are haram for you. The question that comes to mind is why? And many other teachings of Islam that the question of why comes to mind when you learn about those teachings. And this is a fundamental characteristic of the human being. If there is one of the characteristics that sets the human being apart from the rest of the creation that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created, it is this characteristic, that the human being is always asking why. He's always curious to go further and unveil a deeper layer behind a certain phenomena. The fact that he observes the phenomena is not enough for him. He wants to go deeper and understand the wisdom behind it, the reasoning behind it. And he won't stop until he finds the answer to that question. Therefore, if a human being sees an apple fall from a tree, he'll ask why. Why did this apple fall from this tree? Slowly, this will lead to him, for example, finding out about gravity. Similarly, when the human being comes across religious teachings, this idea of asking why, this characteristic of wanting to learn more and see what's happening behind the scenes and behind the curtain also applies here. So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells him he has to fast for 30 days, he's going to ask why. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells him he has to pray 5 times a day, he is going to ask why. That is where this question comes into the picture, because fundamentally we have to understand, first of all, what is Islam's take on us asking why when it comes to religious teachings? If God tells me to pray 5 times a day, is it okay for me to turn around then and say, why do I have to pray 5 times a day? Why not 6 times? Why not 4 times? If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells me that when you're doing dhabiha for this animal, there are particular conditions, is it okay for me to turn around and ask why? Why is it that the name of Allah has to be mentioned when the animal is being slaughtered? Why not before it? Why not after it? If it's simply a matter of remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, shouldn't it be enough for me just to remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and not have to mention the name in particular? And tens of other questions that will come to our minds. Therefore, tonight and tomorrow night, we want to delve into this topic. And in order to do so, we'll pose the following questions. Number 1, in general, does Islam see asking questions with regards to the why behind things, the why behind rulings? Does Islam see this in a negative light, or does Islam see this in a positive light? Number 2, what did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say and how did He react initially when the angels questioned His decision when it came to the creation of Adam? These verses that I started the lecture with. How did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala respond to their questions? Number 3, did the companions of the Prophet and the Ahlulbayt ever sit down with them and simply ask them why? Ya Rasulullah, you told us to do this. Why did you tell us to do this? O son of the Prophet, O grandson of the Prophet, as it relates to the Imams, you told us to do this. Why did you tell us to do this? Was this part of the seerah and the lifestyle of the companions of the Ahlul Bayt or not? Number 4, what claim did the first Imam make as it related to his own knowledge, and how much did he encourage others to come and ask him and benefit from the knowledge that he carried? Number 5, what is the mistake that parents make when they want to explain religion to their children as it relates to explaining the wisdom behind the different rulings that we have in Islam? And number 6, and finally, couldn't have Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala shared with us the wisdom behind every single ruling out there? And wouldn't have that made faith easier for you and I? Wouldn't it have been easier if we knew exactly why we pray 5 times a day and not 6 times? Wouldn't it have been easier if I knew exactly why this dhabiha has to be done in this particular way and not any other way? And if that was the case, why didn't they go ahead and share these wisdoms and these reasons with us? Tonight, inshallah, we'll delve into these 6 questions with a loud salawat ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. Let's begin from here. The human being has a characteristic. No other animal or creature that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created has this characteristic to the same extent. And that is the characteristic of asking why. A human being, when he observes a phenomena, he doesn't simply observe it. He doesn't stop there. Then he wants to figure out why this happened. He wants to go deeper. He wants to learn what's happening behind the scenes. Yes? Other creatures that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created, the animals that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created, they don't ask this question. A honeybee never sits there and asks, what happened that they took my honey? What can I do next time so they don't take my honey? This is never a question for the honeybee. You take his honey, he carries on with life. He makes honey again, you come and take the honey again, and life goes on. The cow never asks, let me see why they took the milk from me. He makes the milk, you take the milk, and life moves on, because this is how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created other creatures. But the human being has been blessed with this ability to constantly ask why. And the very foundation of science and knowledge is this. And this is why the human being on the face of the earth is the dominant creature that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created. Because through asking why, He creates knowledge. Through that knowledge, He has power over the other creatures that we have on earth. The same way the human being asks why when it comes to natural phenomena, he also asks this question when it comes to religious phenomena as well. So the same way he asks why when the apple falls from the tree, he also asks the same question when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells him to pray 5 times a day, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells him to do any of the other religious duties that he has. But the question is, what is Islam's take on him asking why anyways? Is this seen in a positive light in Islam, or is it seen in a negative light in Islam? This is what we want to get into, inshallah. If you went back to the first story that the Quran mentions, first story from a chronological order, would refer to, of course, the story of Adam, our grandfather, yes, the one that we all came from. And in that story, interestingly enough, on page 6, if you open the Qur'ans, this is at the top of page 6 of your Uthman Taha Qur'ans. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala relates for us the story of the creation of Adam. But the story of the creation of Adam is less actually about the creation of Adam as much as it is about the angels questioning God's wisdom with regards to creating Adam. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, we created Adam. That's not the big part of the story. That's not the majority of the story. That part, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala passes by very quickly. He jumps to the part where he says, وَإِذْ قَالَ رَبُّكَ لِلْمَلَائِكَةِ إِنِّي جَاعِلٌ فِي الْأَرْضِ خَلِيفَةً. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala jumps to that part of the story where he says, we told the angels that now this human being is going to represent me on the face of the earth. Before the angels say anything else, before the verses continue, immediately, imagine this is like the beginning of creation of the human beings. The human being has not even entered into the picture yet. And immediately the angels, they raise their question. Ya Allah, why? أَتَجْعَلُ فِيهَا مَنْ يُفْسِدُ فِيهَا. You're going to bring this human being, he's going to create corruption. وَيَسْفِكُ الدِّمَاء. He's going to shed blood. We see what's happening in Palestine, yes? This is what the angels were asking about, by the way. He knew what the human being is capable of, yes? Ya Allah, you're going to create this human being, he's going to create corruption. Why are you doing this? وَنَحْنُ نُسَبِّحُ بِحَمْدِكَ وَنُقَدِّسُ لَكَ. We worship you, yes? What's the problem? Why do you need this other creature? The first question that the Quran ever speaks of is this question. And how did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala respond to this question? Did he sit there and say, how dare you? Who gave you permission to ask this question? Don't ask why. This is a place of submission only. Don't ever ask why. Is that the response that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave to them? That was not the response. It was the exact opposite. قَالَ إِنِّي أَعْلَمُ مَا لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. I know certain things you don't know. At the very least, he didn't reprimand them for that question. Then the story continues to unfold. What did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala do next? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala manifested for them and displayed for them why he created this human being and the importance of this human being. And that importance was that this human being can gain knowledge, he can change, unlike the angels of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who could never change. They are always at the same level that they are created at. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from the very beginning is setting the stage that asking questions in Islam is not necessarily seen in a negative light. It seems to be something that's completely normal, completely fine. Then you move to the seerah of the Ahlulbayt and how the Ahlulbayt used to conduct themselves when it came to questions that people used to come to them with. And you find this particularly in the seerah of Lady Fatima, salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayha. What do you find in the seerah of Lady Fatima? You find the following. And this is an important hadith to remind you and I of the reward of taking care of the needs of other individuals. The story says a lady came to Lady Fatima and she came to her with a number of questions. But initially when she approached Lady Fatima, she said, I have a couple questions, 2, 3 questions. So Lady Fatima, of course, obliged, allowed her to answer the questions. So as she asked the question, she answered the first question, then the second question, then the third question. But the problem was the questions didn't end at 3. Then the fourth question came, then the fifth question. Then before you know it, 10 questions have been asked. And Lady Fatima continues to answer these questions. By the 10th question, this lady turned around because she started to feel she felt bad that I took so much of her time. So she turned to Lady Fatima and she apologized. She said, I apologize. I told you a couple questions. Here I'm at 10. I'm taking your time. Yes, I'm creating problems for you. To which Lady Fatima responded with the following response. She said, don't worry about taking my time. I'm happy with the reward that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving to me with regards to every question that I answer for you. And then she used an analogy. This analogy has a lesson for you and I. She said, if someone came to you and told you to carry some bags for them to a certain distance, yes? You might even be tired, but they tell you to carry this bag of, bags to a certain distance. Except the reward that they set for you is 100,000 dinars. Now, dinar is a coin made of gold. So you had dirham back in the day. Dirham was silver. Dinar was gold. 100,000, that's a lot of money. She said if someone came to you and it was difficult for you But they said, you know what? You get 100,000 dinars if you carry this weight for me. You carry these bags for me. She said to this lady, would you say no? She said, no, I would take that deal any day. I would definitely respond in the affirmative. I would take those bags because even if I'm tired, the reward is that great, yes? So Lady Fatima said, every time I answer a question of yours, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala rewards me in that way. And every time I answer a question of yours, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grants to me a reward that is greater than anything that the sun has ever shined upon. This is the reward of taking care of the need of another person. So here's Lady Fatima. People are asking her questions. She doesn't sit there and say, how dare you? Oh, take these questions. Just believe. Submit. No, it seems like she entertains the questions at the very least. Where else do you see this? In the seerah of her husband, Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib, salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi. With the first Imam, not only did he entertain questions, he used to go out and tell people to come and ask him questions. And this particularly happened after finally he was recognized as the Khalifa, nearly after 24, 25 years after the Prophet had passed away. The narration says, Asbagh ibn Nubata, companion of the Imam, he says when finally the Imam was recognized as Khalifa, he came and he sat on the mimbar in the masjid. And he had with him the Aba of the Holy Prophet. Muta'ammiman bi'imamati Rasulillah. He had with him the imama of the Prophet. Mutaqallidan sayfa Rasulillah. He was carrying with him the sword of the Prophet. Mutana'ilan na'la Rasulillah. He had with him the sandals of the Prophet. Yes, all the personal belongings of the Prophet passed on to him. The narration says he came and he sat on the mimbar. He crossed his fingers like this, and then he said a line that no other companion of the Prophet has ever dared to utter. He said, Saluni qabla an tafqiduni. Ask me before you lose me. When someone says that line, either they really know everything, or na'udhu billah, God forbid, they have no idea what they're talking about. It's one or the other. There's no third option. When you make a big claim like that, either you are sure and fully confident in yourself, or you don't know anything. And the latter definitely doesn't apply to the first Imam. Therefore, it definitely was the first. So the Imam continued, he said, come and ask me. Did the Imam ever sit there and say, no, don't ask why. Go home. Just believe. Just submit. No. He's sitting on the mimbar. He's telling people, come and ask me. He said, if you give me permission, you give me the ability, I will answer the people of the Tawrat based on the Tawrat. And I will answer the people of the Injil based on the Injil. And I will answer the people who follow the Quran based on the Quran, to an extent that the Injil and the Quran and the Tawrat will come to life. They will say, Sadaqa Aliyun ma kadhib. They will come to life and they say, whatever Ali said is true. He never lied. Yes? Aloud salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. So this is a step further. Lady Fatima entertaining questions. The first Imam asking for people to come forward. And the Imam was very open about this. So later on, as this chain of the Ahlulbayt continued through the fourth Imam, the fifth Imam, whenever they were asked about their grandfather, meaning the first Imam, this was something that was known about the first Imam. They used to say, yes, that was our grandfather. He used to say, Saluni amma shi'tum. Ask me of whatever you like. So the fifth Imam, when his companion asked him, is this true? Your grandfather uttered these words, he made this claim? He said, that is true. My grandfather used to sit on the mimbar. He used to say, Saluni amma shi'tum. Ask me of whatever you like. Then you find the Ahlul Bayt answering questions in situations where you and I would not be willing to answer or entertain a question. Where is this? Imagine the beginning of a war. If you're getting ready for a war, asking theological questions is the last thing that you give time to, yes? If you're getting ready for war, everyone's put on their armor, they're about to enter into battle, this is not a time, yes? Oh, Sheikh, what do you think about this? Oh, my dear Imam, what do you think about this? In these situations, you and I would say, enough with the questions. We don't have time for questions. It's a time for battle, yes? But you find in the seerah of the first Imam, even before they're about to head into battle, in particular, the Battle of Jamal, the two sides are prepared. The two armies are ready to go. The narration says, an A'rabi came. A'rabi were the Bedouins who were not as cultured as the people who actually lived in Medina and other places. They were Bedouins. They were not so familiar with the customs and the culture of the people who actually lived in Medina. Therefore, he found the worst time to come and ask this question. The two armies are set. The first Imam is on one side. The army of the wife of the Prophet is on the other side. He came forward. He said, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, I have a question about Tawheed. Before the battle is going to begin, the companions of the Imam jumped at him. They said, what do you mean Tawheed? This is the battle. It's about to begin. No time for these questions. Set it aside. Go ask some other time. Not the time for it. But you find the first Imam said, no, don't shut him down. Let him ask his question. Because this Tawheed and spreading the knowledge of Tawheed is exactly what we are fighting the other side because of. This is the reason why we're at this battle. And then the Imam continues in that narration. He says there's 4 forms of Tawheed. 2 of them we accept, 2 of them reject. Long narration. You and I would not even entertain questions in these moments, yes? But you find that Ahlulbayt encouraged people to come and ask questions. So much so that if you look amongst our compilation of hadith books, you will find different names. Yes, you will find Al-Kafi is the one most of us are familiar with. And you will find others like Al-Faqih and so on and so forth. You will find one hadith compilation book known as Ilalush Shara'i', the reasons behind legislations. This is a compilation of hadith that Sheikh al-Saduq put together, nearly 2,000 narrations. What do all of these narrations have in common? All of them have in common that the person who came and asked the question was asking why. Why, Ya Rasulullah, do we pray? Why, Ya Ibn Rasulullah, at this time? Why do they call the dunya, dunya? Why do they call the akhirah, the akhirah? Constantly a part of the seerah of the Ahlul Bayt. People were coming to them asking why. Therefore, this idea of asking why is not something that Ahlul Bayt taught us to shut it down. Don't ask this question. You don't have the right to ask this question. No, it seems as though they even encourage the asking of these questions. Now, in order to get into dissecting this topic a little bit more, understanding the different types of why that we ask, let us have, inshallah, a loud salawat, please. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. If you go through Ilal al-Shara'i' or any of the other narrations, you will find the type of whys that people ask, that you and I ask, are of 2 different types. They are not to be mixed with one another. The first type of why is when someone asks you why, but what they mean is, how do you know that this teaching is part of Islam? For example, someone comes to you, especially like for example, you will find between Ahlul Sunnah and the Shia school of thought, yes? You might go to someone who is Sunni and say, why do you cross your hands when you're praying? When you're asking why, you don't mean the wisdom, the benefit, the philosophy behind it. That's not what you're talking about. You're talking about what? Where's the hadith? Where's the verse of the Quran? Where's the sunnah of the Prophet? Yes? Show me this is part of the religion. This is the first type of why. When you ask why, you're not asking for the wisdom and the reason behind things. You're asking for the proof that it is part of Islam. Similarly, someone from Ahlul Sunnah might come your way, say, listen, I've seen you pray on turba. You pray on this dirt, for example, on this stone, whatever. Why? When he says why, he's not asking for some scientific reason. He's asking for some hadith or verse of the Quran that points him in the direction that this is part of our faith. Yes? This is the first type of why. Then you have a second type of why, which we will spend most of our time on that one. The second type of why is when you know something is part of Islam. You want to understand the wisdom and the reason behind it. You want to understand the philosophy behind it. You say, why do we pray 5 times a day? You already know this is part of Islam. You want to understand the wisdom, the benefits, the philosophy, the reasoning behind it. Yes? This is the second type of why. Each of these, we have to see if Islam has encouraged us to ask that type of why or not. Let us begin with the first type of why. Another loud salawat, please. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. The first type of why, I ask why and I want proof that this is part of Islam. I don't need no benefit or reasoning or philosophy or wisdom. That's not what I need. I need proof that this is part of Islam. Should I be asking this why in Islam? This why in Islam, not only is it good to ask it, you have to ask it. Every time someone comes and says this is wajib, you have to ask why. What's your proof? Where is Quran? Where's hadith? Every time someone comes and says this is haram, you have to say why. Now you might say, well, Sheikh, I've never asked this question before. And the reason why is because you have someone who does this on your behalf. Who's that person who does this on your behalf? It is your marja. That is why you follow a marja. Because a marja's job, technically, is the following. Every time someone comes and claims something is wajib, he says, why? What's your proof? Let's see the proof. Let's dissect the proof. Let's look into it. Every time someone comes and says, this is haram, he says, why? What's your proof? Where's the hadith? Where's this? Someone comes forward and says, yes, if it's a Sayyid, haram for him or her to marry non-Sayyid. So this marja, Ayatollah Sistani will say, why? Where's the proof? Let's look into this. Where's the proof for this? Someone comes and says, it's good for you, for example, to do taraweeh. Your marja on your behalf, you know what he's going to do? He's going to say, why? Where's the hadith? Where did the Prophet ever pray this prayer in jama'ah? There's no proof for it. I'm not going to say it's mustahab. No, I have problem with it. It's not mustahab. If you consider it mustahab, I'm going to call this bid'ah now because you're adding stuff to the religion. The first type of why, you have to ask for everything that you do in Islam. You don't have the time to ask that question. That is why you have a marja. A marja asks that why on your behalf. And if you don't ask that why, you will fall into one of these two groups of Muslims, and we have both of them in our communities, yes? You will either become that type of Muslim who is super liberal, everything is halal. Oh, I want to identify as the opposite gender. No problem, it's okay. I want to engage with the same gender. It's okay, no problem. As long as you're a good person at heart, nothing matters. Oh, I don't feel like praying today. It's okay, it's not a problem. Are you a good citizen? You're a good citizen? No problem, it's okay. Either you'll become liberal, everything is halal now. Or you will become that scary conservative Muslim who everything is haram for him now. I want to hold this celebration. Haram, you can't hold that celebration. We want to hold this gathering. Haram, you can't hold that gathering. But where's the Quran and Hadith behind it? Where are the narrations behind it? This person doesn't ask why. He comes up with his own conclusions. So either he ends up being that person who's super progressive, quote unquote, liberal, everything is halal. Now if even Dajjal himself comes, he says, no, maybe Dajjal is also a good person. What do we know, yes? This is this extreme. Then there's the other person who's extreme on the other side. And both of them are a problem. Both of them we deal with in our communities, wherever you go. The first type of why, you have to ask. If you're not asking, your marja has to ask on your behalf. This person says, this is haram. Why? What's the proof behind it? Therefore, the first type of why, not only is it okay to ask it, it is wajib, it is obligatory for you to ask it. Otherwise, what do you end up with? You end up with a religion where culture is mixed up in it. Now you can't tell the difference between culture and religion. Why? Because nobody was asking why. Nobody was saying this custom that you say we have to do it. Is it wajib? What's the proof for that? This is a problem. This is the first type of why. Allah salawat, please. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. This one we understand. The second type of why, the wisdom, the benefit, the philosophy behind something. Can I, when I hear a particular religious command, can I go back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and say, why 5 times a day? Why not 6 times? Why not 4 times? Can I go back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and say, why 30 days? Why not 20 days? You say fasting is very good. Okay, why not 40 days? Can I question the wisdom and the philosophy behind different rulings in Islam? And when it comes to the second type of why, for the most part, you can ask this question. There's nothing wrong with asking this question, except it depends how you ask this question. Sometimes you ask this question, meaning you're going to do it anyways. You just want to know the wisdom and the philosophy behind this. There's no problem here. Sometimes you ask why. In other words, what you're asking is, make it make sense to me. If it doesn't make sense to me, or you don't tell me why, I'm not going to be doing it anymore. Yes, this one is a problem. This type of why, when you ask from this angle, that is a problem. Yes? Why? Because you'll find the following. The rulings that we have in Islam, you can categorize them generally into 4 main categories. Yes? The first set of these rulings, in terms of whether we know the wisdom behind them or not, 4 categories. The first are the ones that are so obvious themselves, you don't need to even ask why. Yes? You shouldn't cheat the person in a transaction. You shouldn't murder. You shouldn't do this. You shouldn't. Basic moral teachings, yes? No one asks why on these things. It's already clear. And if afterwards Brother Misbah comes to me after the lecture and says, Sheikh, I just have one small little question. What's your question? Why is it bad to murder? Yes, this is very worrisome. That means we have bigger problems if he comes and asks that question. Sheikh, I just have one small question. Why is it bad to steal money from other people? Yes, these are the type of teachings already clear in Islam. You don't have to worry about them. Okay. The number of these, very limited, of course. If you made a list, maybe 10, 15 in total, yes? This is number 1. Second category of rulings we have in Islam are those things that we may have not known the reason behind them earlier. But with time and science and knowledge, now we understand better the wisdom and the ruling behind it. Yes? Maybe the usage of alcohol can fall under this category. Today we know what type of effects alcohol has on the lives of the human beings. We know what type of effect it has on the brain. We know what type of effect it has on the liver. All of this. Science has shed light on this. This one, easy to, because science has already shed light on the wisdom behind it. Okay, great. Category number 3 are rulings where science didn't share the wisdom behind it, but the Ahlulbayt came forward and told us the wisdom behind it. A good example for this is fasting. Fasting is one of those things. Ahlulbayt shared multiple reasons as to why it was legislated. You have to fast because it reminds you of the hunger of the Day of Judgment. You have to fast because it reminds you of the hunger of the poor. You have to fast because, for example, it builds taqwa in you. They added multiple ones. These 3 categories. The problem is category number 4. Category number 4 are hundreds of rulings that are detailed rulings, that are not self-evident, that science has not told us the wisdom behind it, and that the Ahlul Bayt, for whatever reason, did not tell us the wisdom behind it. And number 4, category number 4, in my opinion, has more rulings in it than all of 1 and 2 and 3 put together. There are hundreds of rulings in Islam. We don't know the wisdom behind it. We don't know the philosophy behind it. Science can't tell us. The Ahlul Bayt, for whatever reason, didn't tell us. They had the knowledge, they knew. But for whatever reason, which we'll discuss more tomorrow, they didn't share with us. This is something, especially parents, Sunday school teachers, educators, they are a bit hesitant to mention this. Why? Because they want to teach their children that Islam is a logical religion. So as part of that, they preach this idea that no, we know the wisdom behind every single ruling. We know why we do this, we know why we do that. And that is one of the biggest mistakes a parent can make in raising their children. Promoting this idea that everything we do in Islam, we know the reason behind it. So now this child is being raised with the idea that everything, we know the reason behind it. So now, if Ayatollah Sistani can't tell me why hijab is the way that it is, for example, this is not Islam, because it's not logical anymore. Why? Because his parents growing up told him, we know the wisdom behind every single ruling. No, we don't know the wisdom behind every single ruling. There are hundreds of rulings, we don't know the wisdom behind them. This is something we have to understand. This is not a knock against Islam. Tomorrow we'll explain. This is what makes Islam what it is. No faith is a faith if you know the wisdom behind every single ruling. It's impossible. It's not even faith anymore. It's not even belief anymore. Tomorrow we'll talk about this more. There are hundreds of rulings. You're doing wudu. Now the marja tells you if you go upwards on purpose, immediately batil. Why? Oh, we have this hadith. No, I understand we have hadith. What's the wisdom behind it? What's the reasoning behind it? They didn't tell us. You're doing mess, for example, your head has to be dry. Why? They didn't tell us the wisdom behind it. You're doing mess on your feet, can't be wet. Why? I don't know. They said you're doing hijab, you have to cover everything except for the face, for the sisters and the hands, for example. Yes? Why? We don't know the detailed answers behind these questions. And people hear this and think this is a knock against. This is not a knock against Islam. Islam is very open about this. There are hundreds of rulings. We do not know the wisdom behind them. We do not know the reasoning behind them. Because for whatever reason, Ahlulbayt didn't share with us the wisdom behind these rulings. And the list on this goes on and on. So someone says, but Sheikh, I thought our religion is a logical religion. Isn't this like blind faith? That Islam told me you only go downwards and didn't even tell me why. And still I'm expected to only go downwards. It would have been blind faith if Islam didn't give you reason to believe in the fundamentals of the religion. The fundamentals of the religion. If it's not proven to you that God exists, if it's not proven to you that there is a messenger, if it's not proven to you that the Quran is a miracle from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then yes, it would be blind faith. But the idea is you believe in these things. The idea is these things have been proven to you. If they haven't, that's a discussion to be had. But once I already believe this is Quran, word of God, this is Ahlulbayt, they speak on behalf of God, they don't tell me the wisdom behind every single teaching. Yes, that's the reality of it. It's more than you can even count. The Ahlulbayt are very open about this idea. Some of it they have shared with us. Majority of the detailed rulings, they have not shared this wisdom with us. It is a big mistake from a parent to bring up their child with this idea. Every time the child says, Baba, why do we do this? He has to come up with a reason. Oh, we do this because it's like this. We do this is because of like that. Sometimes you have to turn around, say, we don't know why we do this. We do this because an Ahlulbayt told us to do this, who it's proven to us that they speak on behalf of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that is enough for us. That is enough for us. That is why this religion is called Islam. Islam means what? If you ask most Muslims, they'll tell you Islam means peace. Unfortunately, Islam doesn't mean peace. Yes, it's a religion of peace, but Islam, the word, doesn't mean peace. Islam means submission. Yes. So when you are walking into the room, on a big banner, it says submission. Then you walk in here, you say, well, no, I need to know the wisdom behind everything. Why is this? Why is that? Like, Baba, you didn't see the sign when you were walking in? The sign really big said Islam. This is the part where you submit. Not blind faith. The fundamentals, you have those proven to you. The rest, yes, you have to submit yourself to those teachings. But the question that inshallah we'll end tonight's talk with, and inshallah we'll continue the discussion tomorrow, is this. Yes, I understand that I have to submit, and even if I don't know the wisdom behind a particular ruling, I have to act on it, and so on and so forth. But the question that still remains, couldn't have the Ahlulbayt told us the wisdom behind all these rulings? We believe they had the knowledge. We believe they had 12 ma'sumin, 14 ma'sumin, 12 imams. They could have told us the wisdom and the reason behind all these rulings. Why didn't the Ahlulbayt just make our lives easier and tell us the wisdom behind these different rulings? Imagine how much easier that conversation would be with your non-Muslim friend if he asked you, why do you pray 5 times a day? And then you told him because of some scientific energy in the world, you pray 5 times a day. Wouldn't he be so much impressed? Imagine if your Sunni friend turned to you and said, why do you pray with turba? And you said, because there's some energy in this dirt and it connects with the energy in the world. What are some scientific reasoning? Wouldn't that conversation be so much easier? Wouldn't so many more people embrace the faith if you knew the wisdom behind every single teaching and ruling? This is a question that remains unanswered. I understand we don't know the wisdom behind every single teaching, but couldn't have they just made life easier and told us the wisdom behind all of this? And wouldn't that have brought even more people into the folds of Islam? Maybe it would have. But on purpose, it seems, they didn't tell us the wisdom behind every single ruling. Tomorrow night, inshallah, we'll continue with this discussion as to why is it, there's multiple reasons, as to why they did not, on purpose, tell us the wisdom and the philosophy behind every single teaching. Yes, we do have narrations from Ma'sumin on select instances they did so. Amongst those is none but Lady Fatimiyya Zahra, salawatullahi salamuhu alayha. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. Where do you find this? You find this in Khutbah Fadakiyya, yes? where in that khutbah, which is a lengthy khutbah, it is narrated in Balaghatun Nisa, and of course in Bihar al-Anwar later is narrated as well. You find in Khutbah Fadakiyya that Lady Fatima, when she came to the masjid, after it was already decided that Fadak would not be given to her, and that this oppression would happen to her, in that khutbah, she starts to begin to speak of the wisdom behind some of the teachings in Islam. Nearly 20 different teachings, Lady Fatima begins to explain the wisdom and the philosophy behind it. Let us take a moment to dim the lights, inshallah, and take our hearts to the city of Medina, where our beloved mother, Lady Fatima Zahra, is going through difficulty and is going through pain. Sallallahu alayki ya Fatima Zahra, sallallahu alayki ya bint Rasulillah. Imagine the atmosphere in Medina. Imagine the house of the Prophet in these days and in these nights. Maybe our mother Fatima Zahra at this point, it's difficult for her to get up and walk around the house at this point. Maybe it's difficult for her to take care of her own affairs at this point. Maybe losing a child has had such a detrimental effect on her that even life has become dark and difficult for her. And the masa'ib of Fatima Zahra does not begin just from these days and nights. You know, when the masa'ib of Fatima began, the first person who spoke of the calamities of Fatima was not even Ali ibn Abi Talib, it was her father, the Prophet. Because even when the Prophet was in his final moments in the deathbed, those moments he uttered words that were going to speak of the oppression that Fatima was going to go through, the difficulty and the masa'ib that Fatima was going to go through. Yes, if you take your heart to the city of Medina, the final days of the Prophet's life, and the Prophet is in his deathbed, and the narration says that those moments, it was so painful for the Ahlulbayt. Fatima used to come and see her father and break down in tears. And Ali ibn Abi Talib used to come and see the Prophet in pain, and he used to break down in tears. And Hassan and Hussein, these children, used to come and throw themselves on the body of the Prophet. And the narration says in those final moments, the Prophet told Ali ibn Abi Talib not to take Hassan and Hussein away from him, because he wanted to take advantage of those final moments to be with Hassan and Hussein for the final times. Then what did the Prophet do in those final moments? He told Salama to stand at the door and to only have Hassan and Hussein and the immediate family around him. And then he started to speak to Ali ibn Abi Talib, and he said these lines. He said, Ya Ali, this daughter of mine is my amana to you, yes? This daughter of mine is wadi'atullah. She is the trust of Allah that I'm passing on to you. She is the amana of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that I'm passing on to you. What is the Prophet saying? The Prophet is saying, Ya Ali, there's going to come a time where this trust of mine, this amana of mine, people are going to come to try and hurt her. People are going to come to try and take away her rights. People are going to come and try to pain her. Ya Ali, those are the moments that you have to watch out for her. And then the Prophet continued. He said, whoever hurts my daughter Fatima, that person is like the one who has hurt me. And whoever pains my daughter Fatima, that person is like the one who has pained me. And whoever takes away from the rights of Fatima is like the one who's taken away from my rights as well. The narration says Ali saw the Prophet in these moments. He began to cry. And one narration says the Prophet took the hand of Fatima and the hand of Ali and put their hands into the hands of each other. And the Prophet said, Ya Ali, take care of my daughter after I am gone. This is the Prophet speaking of the calamities that are going to begin. And you know, from this moment where the Prophet left this world until the martyrdom of Fatima, all of it was full of darkness and pain. All of it was full of calamity. There was just one moment that brought a smile to the face of Fatima. And that one moment that brought a smile to the face of Fatima was what? They say at one point the Prophet whispered something in the ears of Fatima. And this brought a smile to the face of Fatima. Later they asked Fatima, Ya Fatima, what did the Messenger of God whisper in your ears? And she said, the Prophet told me that from his family, I would be the first one who would join him in heaven. What does this mean? This means Fatima is going to live a short life.
This means Fatima is going to leave this world at such a young age because she can barely take the idea of being away from her father. Her father told her this line. A smile came onto the face of Fatima. But after that time, that was the last smile on the face of Fatima, yes? From that point onwards, for the next couple of months of the life of Fatima, it was all pain. It was all crying. It was all weeping. It was so difficult for Fatima to go through those 2 months. And the weeping of Fatima reminds you of the weeping of another lady on the 10th of Muharram in the plains of Karbala. La yawm ka yawmaka ya Aba Abdullah. There is no day like the day of the 10th of Muharram. Who else was weeping on the 10th of Muharram? Who else was crying from the moment they lost their loved one? This was Zainab, yes? The moment she saw Hussein in the battlefield, and the moment Hussein was beheaded, then the narration says Zainab started to run back towards the tents. She started to run back towards the tents, and tears coming down. But the masa'ib and the difficulties had already begun. The tents are already being set on fire. The enemy is already attacking the tents. You know when Zainab finally got the opportunity to cry? The next day when they were taking the bodies of the martyrs and they were taking the bodies of the captives and the heads of the shuhada, the narration says they brought Zainab, and Zainab came out and she saw the bodies of the martyrs. She called out, Wa Muhammadah, Wa Aliyah. What a massacre has taken place in the plains of Karbala. Salla alayka malikus sama. O Messenger of God, this is Hussein who used to be on your shoulders. Now his body is in the middle of the plains of Karbala. Murammalun bid-dima. His body is covered with blood. I can barely tell his body from the body of others. Muqatta'ul a'dha. His different parts of his body have been cut off. Ya Rasulullah, this is what they did to your grandson. What happened to the heart of Zainab on the 10th of Muharram? As she walked by the bodies of these shuhada and started on this journey towards Kufa and Sham. Ala la'natullah ala al-qawmi al-zalimin. Wa say'alamu alladhina zalamu ayya munqalabin yanqalibun. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that all of those who are in pain and in difficulty, especially our brothers and sisters in Palestine, that He frees them from their difficulty and pain, inshaAllah. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that all of those who are ill and ailing, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grants them health and afiyah, inshaAllah. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that all of those who have hajat, they have requests from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that He grants them their requests and their hajat, inshaAllah. Finally, last but not least, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He hastens the return of our beloved 12th Imam, bin Nabiyyi wa alih. رحم الله من قرأ سورة الفاتحة مع الصلوات على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
क्यों सैयदा पे न रोए हैदर बिनते नबी पर है जुल्म ऐसा क्यों सैयदा पे न रोए हैदर बिनते नबी पर है जुल्म ऐसा کیوں سیدہ پہ نہ روئے حیدر بنت نبی پر ہے ظلم ایسا کیوں سیدہ پہ نہ روئے حیدر بنت نبی پر ہے ظلم ایسا کیوں سیدہ پہ نہ روئے حیدر بنت نبی پر ہے ظلم ایسا کیوں سیدہ پہ نہ حیدر بنت نبی پر ہے ظلم ایسا کیوں سیدہ پہ نہ روئے حیدر بنت نبی پر ہے ظلم کیوں سیدہ پہ نہ روئے حیدر بنت نبی پر ہے ظلم ایسا کیوں سیدہ پہ نہ روئے حیدر بنت نبی پر شبیر و شبر روتے ہیں مادر شبیر و شبر روتے ہیں مادر بنت نبی پر ہے ظلم ایسا کیوں سیدہ پہ نہ روئے حیدر بنت نبی پر ہے ظلم ایسا کیوں سیدہ پہ نہ روئے حیدر بنت نبی ہے ظلم ایسا شبیر و شبر روتے ہیں مادر شبیر و شبر روتے ہیں مادر بنت نبی پر ہے ظلم ایسا کیوں سیدہ پہ نہ روئے حیدر بنت نبی پر ہے ظلم ایسا کیوں سیدہ پہ نہ روئے حیدر بنت نبی پر ہے ظلم ایسا کیوں مارتے ہو ہم کو لعینوں میرے علی کو چھوڑو لعینوں کیوں مارتے ہو ہم کو لعینوں میرے علی کو چھوڑو لعینوں جبریل روئے یہ جرم کیسا جبریل روئے یہ جرم کیسا بنت نبی پر ہے ظلم ایسا کیوں سیدہ پہ نہ روئے حیدر بنت نبی پر ہے ظلم ایسا کیوں سیدہ پہ نہ روئے حیدر بنت نبی پر ہے ظلم ایسا کیوں سیدہ پہ نہ روئے حیدر بنت نبی پر ہے ظلم ایسا کربل بھی یثرب میں آ گیا ہے یہ غم تو زینب پہ چھا گیا ہے کربل بھی یثرب میں آ گیا ہے یہ غم تو زینب پہ چھا گیا ہے زینب کو کیوں ہے ایک خوف ایسا زینب کو کیوں ہے ایک خوف ایسا بنت نبی پر ہے ظلم ایسا کیوں سیدہ پہ نہ رو حیدر بنت نبی پر ہے ظلم ایسا کیوں سیدہ پہ نہ روئے حیدر بنت نبی پر ہے ظلم ایسا شبیر و شبر روتے ہیں مادر شبیر و شبر روتے ہیں مادر بنت نبی پر ہے ظلم ایسا کیوں سیدہ پہ نہ روئے حیدر بنت نبی پر ہے ظلم ایسا کیوں سیدہ پہ نہ روئے حیدر بنت نبی پر ہے ظلم ایسا
حسین کلمہ گو ہنس کے رہے فاطمہ روتی رہی 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 کلمہ گو ہنس کے رہے فاطمہ رو اتنی بے بس کی مدینے میں نبی کی گخ کر جل کا دروازہ کسی نے نہ اٹھایا کر ہائے کیسا تھا شکم رکھ کے قرآن پہ قدم آ گئے گھر میں شکی کلمہ گو ہنس کے رہے فاطمہ روتی رہی کلمہ گو ہنس کے رہے فاطمہ روتی رہی تانے سن کے تھے یہ بازار میں لوگوں سے علی اس نے مارا تھا ہمارے ہی بزرگوں کو کبھی ہم نے یوں بدلا لیا قتل زہرا کو کیا کچھ نہ کر پایا علی کلمہ گو ہنس کے رہے فاطمہ روتی رہی کلمہ گو ہنس کے رہے فاطمہ جیسے قصاب ذبیحے کو لیے جاتے ہیں ایسے حیدر کو لئی کے چھکے لے آتے ہیں آگے آگے ہے علی پیچھے پیچھے وہ چلی جو ہے زخموں سے بھری کلمہ گو ہنس کے رہے فاطمہ روتی رہی کلمہ گو ہنس کے رہے فاطمہ روتی رہی صرف پہلو نہیں بازو بھی شکستہ ہوگا تم نے کس طرح جنازے کو سنبھالا ہوگا کیسے کل بھک میں رکھا تنہا میت کو بھلا میرے مظلوم علی کلمہ گو ہنس کے رہے فاطمہ روتی رہی کلمہ گو کے رہے فاطمہ روتی رہی یاد جب آتا ہے دل ہوتا ہے پارا پارا کیسے حسنین کی ماگر کو لیں گے مارا خون آنکھوں سے بہا صرف جا میگی کہا اور زمین پر وہ گری کلمہ گو ہنس کے رہے فاطمہ روتی رہی کلمہ گو ہنس کے رہے
زہرا کی بیٹیوں کی ردائیں اتر گئی زہرا کی بیٹیوں اتر گئی زہرا کی بیٹیوں کی ردائیں اتر گئی زہرا کی بیٹیوں کی ردائیں اتر گئی سجاد کو ظریف صدائیں یہ کر گئی لاشوں کو رسیوں میں جکڑ کر لیے پھرو لاشوں کو سیدانیاں تو گھر سے نکلتے ہی مر گئی زہرا بیٹیوں کی رداں جاتی تھی جو کبھی کبھی زہرا کی قبر پر کبھی کبھی زہرا کی قبر پر جانے خدا ہجوم سے کیسے گزر گئی زہرا کی بیٹیوں زہرا کی بیٹیوں ظلم و ستم کی تیز ہوائیں تھی جب چلی سب گلشن بطول کی کلائیں بکھر گئی زہر زہرا کی بیٹیوں کی ردائیں اتر گئی گودوں سے راہ شام میں گر گر کے مر گئے گودوں سے راہ بچوں کے لاش دیکھ کے مائیں بھی مر گئی زہرا کی کی بیٹیوں رملہ یہ پوچھتی تھی سکینہ سے قید میں زخمی ہے کابلیان بی بی کدھر گئی زہر زہرا کی بازار لے کے جاؤ نہ بے پردہ ظالموں مر جائے گی حسین کی بہنیں اگر گئی زہرا بیٹیوں ردائیں اتر گئی زہرا کی بیٹیوں ردائیں زہرا کی بیٹیوں کی ردائیں اتر گئی زہرا سجاد کو ظریف صدائیں یہ کر گئی زہرا کی بیٹی
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. السلام عليك يا رسول الله. السلام عليك يا حبيب الله. السلام عليك يا أمير المؤمنين علي بن أبي طالب.
السلام عليك يا فاطمة الزهراء سيدة نساء العالمين. السلام عليك يا حسن المجتبى. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله الحسين. السلام على 9 المعصومين من ذرية الحسين. السلام عليك يا صاحب العصر والزمان. السلام عليك يا خليفة الرحمن. السلام عليك يا إمام الإنس والجان ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليكم يا أهل بيت النبوة جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. الله حجة ابن الحسن صلوات